Hey everyone, and welcome to episode 7 of Shaman Talk with Tegan. If you're just joining me on this episode, welcome. Thanks for coming. Hopefully you stick around. I have some pretty cool other videos that I've already posted on some interesting things, so feel free to go back and watch those as well. So 2 weeks ago, I did a video talking about how my training as a shaman started. And I said we go through the cardinal points in the training. We start in the south, then we go to west, north, and east. So the practice of the south had to do with the serpent. So each direction has an animal and has 4 main teachings that you kind of try and integrate into your life. With this video, I'm only going to do one, just like I did in the south, just one of those teachings. So today, we're going from the south, we're moving on to the west. So that's kind of the second portion of my training that I did. And of course, this is a very, very condensed version. We spend months in each direction with the teachings, with the energy work that we do, and the healings and things like that. So the animal for the west is the jaguar. And I actually, when I do the illuminations, when I do my actual work as a shaman, I call on the jaguar, because if there's someone who has super intense healing and heavy stuff that's coming up that I'm clearing, I have him there just in case, I'm almost trying to catch up, and he's there to help me. And what the jaguar does is mulch. He mulches. So it can be if you're healing yourself, or if you're like me and other energy workers, we help mulch other people's heavy energies and densities. And he's there for me when I do illuminations, almost as backup, He's there to help me get rid of the negative energies, the heavy densities that we tend to collect in our energy fields. So the West is also about connecting with your ancestors as well. So that was very interesting, because in my last video was about reincarnation. We have ancestors of this lifetime, and then we have the ancestors of every other lifetime that we've lived. So really, your ancestors are more than just grandma and grandpa or aunts and uncles from this lifetime. It spans lifetimes. So really, it's amazing, because you have this almost army of people behind you who are there to help you and guide you and support you. My only little warning is that if you do go into this spiritual side of things and you start maybe using a pendulum or whatever it is, just make sure you know who you're talking to, because sometimes you'll get energies or entities, like I did a ghost and attachment video earlier. You'll get people or things wandering in, kind of be like, oh yes, I'm your great-great-grandma, and they're absolutely not. So that's my warning. Although you have this army of people who want to help you and are there for you, make sure you know who you're talking to. Okay, so one of the practices of the West that I'm going to talk about today is the practice of non-engagement. And I think this is such an important thing that everyone can really learn to do. And some people, of course, already do it. But for those of you maybe who haven't practiced non-engagement, especially in the age of social media, this is such an important one. So it's pretty much exactly what it sounds like. It's really understanding that most of the time it is not necessary to engage with people out of anger, fear, spite, whatever it is, those negative emotions. If you have the thought crossing your mind of should I give that person a piece of my mind? The short answer is no. It's usually not worth it. And it's not just because, you don't want to be confrontational or something. It's just that when you engage, just for an example, if someone comments a negative comment on your Facebook or Instagram or whatever it is, you deserve peace. And I understand maybe reading something like that, it'd be like, okay, well, that's rude. But ultimately, if you engage back, then you're just bringing up anger and, whatever it is out of you, instead of it just being from that person. Now you're angry. Instead, if you look at something like that, it should be like, you're not even either gonna look at it, don't even bother if it's from a certain person, or delete, don't even think about it, delete it out of your mind, it's over, or just ignore it, And of course, as any of these teachings, it takes time to integrate things like these, right? It's not just gonna be a switch like that, and then you're like, oh, non-engagement, never again. But it's like I said, especially in the age of social media where people sometimes feel like they have the right to just be rude and mean to people for no reason. But this can be face to face, of course, too. And I feel like this happens a lot with family because we're very comfortable with family. And so we kind of just say what's on our mind and, consequences be damned. And it's like, in the end, that's just not really, as a whole species, as a human species, we're not trying to go down that avenue. That's the wrong way. We're trying to, generally ascend. We're trying to find the empathy and the love for everyone, our neighbors, friends, family, even people who trigger us. So, triggers. This isn't something new that I'm making up. A lot of therapists talk about this too. Know your triggers and understand your triggers and own them. If someone says something to you that gets you just so angry or so annoyed or whatever it is, that's on you. And I know that might sound harsh, but again, big picture, that's your problem that you need to understand. Because if someone comes up to me at this point and says, your videos suck, I literally don't take it personally. Like, okay, I really don't care at all. And it's not in a negative, like, ugh, I don't care about you and your opinion. It's just, all right, move on, whatever. And, again, I'm not trying to say I'm up here on my high horse and I know better than everyone, but from the shamanic perspective, if you can do that in your daily life, understand your triggers and work on them, then life will be so much better. Like, it's so much better when you truly don't have those types of triggers daily. So, again, to kind of expand on that, it's like, you almost have to thank people. You don't have to actually literally thank them, but when someone makes you just so mad or angry or really just, you want to maybe punch them in the face. Maybe not that dramatic, but it could be. Really, what they're doing is they're showing you that, hey, you got something inside you that needs to be worked on. And not because there's something wrong with you or you're not right, but we can always grow and be better as people, right? Every single one of us, no matter who you are or what you are, everyone can better themselves, and that's okay. And it's also okay to acknowledge where you stand right now in your life. If I know I got lots of triggers, I'm angry, I want this, that's okay. It's still love yourself and understand yourself and give yourself grace, but also know that we can all always do, better for ourselves and for those around us, okay? So I'm not trying to say that you are a bad person if you get triggered. That's not it at all. Everyone at some point gets triggered. It is what it is because we're in this heavy third dimension, right? And once in a while we have to engage because once in a while we get thrown something that we are totally not ready for and we either have to defend ourselves physically or whatever it is. But what I'm saying is that, like I said, if some people are your mirrors, and there's this weird thing going around right now where people are using the word, what is it, like spiritual gaslighting or something, and it's just like, listen, this isn't gaslighting. People who say that are the ones that are perpetuating this constant victimhood of everyone. And that's a whole nother thing that we talk about in the South and the West is the victim cycle, and I won't get into that right now. Again, that's another episode, but we need to take responsibility for ourselves. Everyone does. That's just what it is. And I'm telling you, if you can understand where your triggers are and figure them out and find a way to heal them, and that might be therapy, that might be energy work, that might be a new hobby, it might be a combination of all of them, new friends, it might be a combination of everything, and it might take a while. I'm not saying, again, all these things aren't like that. It takes weeks, months, years, a lifetime. It's okay, whatever your timeline is. But I think the second you can start to acknowledge something like that, then life gets a little easier. Maybe at times it gets harder because you're like, oh, gotta hold in my anger. But eventually you gotta find a way so that you don't even have that anger about this issue, okay? And I don't want to talk in circles here, but practice of non-engagement, understanding that when someone comes at you out of fear or anger or sadness, That's their issue. That's not for you to absorb and react to. No matter what you think, even if they're like, oh, you are the problem, or I don't like you. Well, really, that's their problem, you know? It's not you. It's them. And vice versa. If you're being triggered by someone or something, especially in, certain political climates, that's something you got to look into in yourself. And I think that's kind of a sticking point. Even for me, when I talk to people about getting an illumination, it's like I tell them, you have to kind of acknowledge certain things about yourself in order to let it go. And some people aren't willing to do that. And that's fine if you're not willing to do that yet. But in order to fully heal and be the best version of yourself, people need to start digging deep. You need to start understanding yourself on a deeper level. And sometimes, it's called your shadow self. It's like, ooh, yikes. Or I'll tell you kind of a personal story. When I was first starting out my shaman training and I was going through a lot in life, like we tend to do sometimes. And I had someone, we were getting in an argument. I had someone just stop and be like, why do you react like this when I bring the subject up? And the best thing that I could ever do for myself, I did that time. I stopped. I didn't react back like I normally would have. I stopped and actually took in the question and thought about what they were saying. And I was like, why do I react? It wasn't anything that they were saying that was overly aggressive or overly mean, but I really had to think about it. I'm like, why do I react like this when this subject comes up? And eventually the answer did come, and, started a whole spiral in my life of different things happening all at once. But ultimately, it was enlightening because I was like, oh, I was getting mad and irritated at this person for bringing this up, but really, they had a right to bring up what they did. And it was me who had that irritation, but it was because of something I needed to confront in myself. And once I did that and could do that, life just becomes easier, a little bit, just that little bit more easier when you can understand yourself and understand other people. So really, we need to watch our engagements. We need to stop projecting onto other people or letting others project onto us. People are going to project onto us. It happens. It's up to you whether you get triggered or not. Okay? Again, we all got to take a little bit more responsibility for ourselves. Stop blaming the others around us. It's us. There was a line in my training manual that said, like, no one is pushing past your boundaries. You're letting them push past your boundaries. Of course, there's going to be people trying to push our boundaries, right? And if it becomes a serious issue over and over, then maybe you need to take a step back from certain relationships. And that's okay too. Doesn't mean you have to forever end it or whatever, but once you need to take some time to heal yourself, you can maybe, start that relationship again, whatever it is. So, and I know people might have some opinions on this because a lot of people don't want to take responsibility for our own actions sometimes. And I get it. Sometimes it's like, oh, like I can't even go there. And again, if that's where you're at, I'm not trying to shame you. I'm not trying to do anything. But from a shamanic perspective, if we're all going to try and be better versions of ourselves, this is part of how we do that. Because when you constantly let yourself get triggered, project onto other people, you're going back and forth in this angry, sad, whatever it is, this fearful state, that's literally draining. It's draining the life out of you. And I know some of you, if you have a lot of these interactions, know that because it's draining mentally, emotionally, it's exhausting. So why do that to yourself? Again, it's like, you're just taking away your own peace, your own happiness. We all got to do that deep dive, guys, at some point, even if it's a little bit more of a shallow dive, really looking into ourselves. And, again, I'm not claiming to be perfect. There are times where someone says something to me. The point I'm at, though, is I'm able to stop myself. I don't usually react now. I never, out of anger or just being caught off guard, just say something or do something over the top. It's, even if I do feel triggered, I'm able to stop myself and be like, okay, why is this getting to me so much? So again, this is just something this is something everyone can try and do at some point. And although I'm coming from a shamanic perspective on this, again, this is not something that like I made up or the shamans made up. Like, this is a fairly normalized thing at this point. The difference is are you going to be able to get there? If not, if you're not sure, and that's why as a shaman, we do the illumination process. If you have this anger inside of you that you just cannot get rid of, you probably need an illumination and or a soul retrieval. Because like I've said in my reincarnation and illumination videos, sometimes these emotions stem from past lives, traumatic past lives. And so especially if you're like, I don't know, I've always had this sadness inside of me and it makes no sense. I had a decent childhood. My life is great, but I just feel sad. Then that's something much deeper in your energy field that's probably just sticking around and, help making these things happen, making you feel this way. So if that's the case where you're like, I know my triggers, I still can't get rid of this anger, message me. We can do an illumination, or if you're not, I can do them over the phone. But if you're like, no, I want to see someone in person, of course, like I always say, find someone near you that can do energy work. You'd be amazed at how different energy work can make you feel. And especially if it's connected to a past life, once you get rid of that, it's literally sometimes like, whoa, I feel different. I feel lighter. I feel just different inside in a good way. So that's my official pitch for everyone to, well, first of all, get some kind of energy work done. I really think that most people need some in any way, shape, or form. And if you're on the fence about it, I understand. If you don't, people are fearful of things they don't understand. And again, that's normal. But, look into it. And I really think, what do you have to lose? I don't know. I think that's the biggest thing for me. Like, if anything, it's going to make you feel great. At the worst, you're just going to be like, meh, not for me. Anyways, non-engagement, check your triggers. We need to stop projecting our fears, our anger onto other people. And I do just want to mention that this doesn't always mean that it's angry and people are yelling at you or doing things like that. Sometimes we project our fear onto other people, and we see this a lot with like parents and children. And that's why it's part of like, sometimes we got ancestral trauma or ancestral curse, because it's like through the lineage, it's like, oh, every single mom has had, let's just say, anxiety. And then you raise your children, sometimes unknowingly, in this anxietal state. So then they're used to some anxietal state. So then they're always anxietal. And so it's like, we got to watch what we're doing, what we're saying to other people. And sometimes, again, back to the fear portion, it's like, if your mom was constantly like, oh, be careful, oh my gosh, don't do it, oh my gosh, be careful, whoa, like helicopter parent. And again, not trying to blame or shame anyone, it happens, but like, that's projecting, but not out of anger, right? That's just projecting fear. And although it's coming from a place of love, you love your kids, you don't want them to be hurt or whatever it is, that's still projection. That's your issue. That's not your children's issue. Kids are crazy, right? That's just how they are sometimes. But if you're projecting your fear onto them constantly, it's eventually going to soak in, and then they're going to become fearful and have these anxieties, So, end result, non-engagement, choosing how we interact with people in negative situations, and that, ultimately taking responsibility for ourselves, for our emotions, for our triggers. And just, if we can do that, even just a little bit, I truly think this world will be a much happier place. And it might sound corny, but I think that it's true. If we can all, before we react at people, especially online where we can be like almost hidden and not face any kind of consequences, if we can stop ourselves from projecting and engaging constantly in negativity and fear, then we could all be sitting around the campfire singing Kumbaya or whatever your idea of, a peaceful place is. And so I think we really can get there. And really, if you talk to a lot of other like energy workers and things like that, that time is coming. It's literally upon us of where we can get there. It's just a matter of every individual just trying to do better for themselves. Or if you can't, maybe you got some stuff in there you can't face yet, work on, healing nature, do something for nature, do something for your community, something like that. You know, we're all just like I said in my last video, we're all just kind of bopping around trying to figure out what to do. Well, here's a starting point if you need one. Working on yourself, healing yourself, and then from there it just kind of spreads naturally, you know. People take notice, not that it's about other people noticing, but when you heal yourself, you heal those around you automatically. And if you do have ancestral baggage from even like 100 years ago, if you're able to heal yourself, then guess what? That slowly permeates as well into your lineage, and you start to heal your ancestors. And that's part of the work of the West that you do as a shaman, and it all comes around full circle. So if you are someone that is working on trying to heal yourself, and maybe you feel stuck, or you feel like nobody gives you credit, or like, you know, I've had it happen where people still see me as, you know, the old version of me, and they'll make a comment about whatever it is, you know, and it's just like, again, checking my own triggers. I know the work I'm doing. I know that I'm a better version of myself. Just letting it go, because in the end, I know I'm doing what's best for me and what's best for my lineage and for my daughter of this lifetime. And so, you know, that's all you can do. Again, if you have any questions or just comments, leave a comment, or I have my email on here. You can message me on Instagram or Facebook. On there, I'm Tarot with Tegan, T-A-R-O-T. How do you spell tarot? But yeah, feel free to message me. And even if you want energy work done, if you want to, I read tarot cards as well, if you just want to go that route. Or like I said, I'm always down to just chat. If you have questions, concerns, let me know. Or also if anybody is like, oh, what's your opinion on, you know, the core of the earth actually not being molten lava, but being a whole nother world? That is a theory. Anything that comes to mind where you're like, oh, what's your opinion on this? I more than likely have some kind of opinion. Well, once in a while not. Once in a while there's something that's a little bit out there even for me, but let me know and I can do an episode about it. So let's do this together, everybody.